working? I think it is. Cool. I am going to what I want to do. Because that seems awfully quiet. I'm gonna bump this up to that. Is that better? Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Actually, what might be better is if I put it down here. Hello. Good evening. Welcome. We are going to take a look at this NTSB report of the in-flight separation of left mid-exit door plug, Alaska Airlines Flight 1282, Boeing 737-9, and 704AL. So, this seemed like a fun thing to do. Wait, hang on. Okay, yes, I think it is working. Yes. Not quite sure, but I'm assuming it's working. Warning, the stream, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Anyway, this seemed like something interesting to do. I picked this one just because I'm from here, and I vaguely remember it. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to kind of cold read this entire thing for as long as either it takes or I give up. And looks like we have some videos. I'm not sure if we'll be able to watch those, but we will see. So, let me fix my eyes, and we'll get going. What happened? On January 5, 2024, a Boeing 737-9 aeroplane operated by Alaska Airlines as Flight 1282 experienced an in-flight separation of the left mid-exit door (brackets MED) plug and rapid depressurization when climbing through about 14,830 feet after takeoff from Portland International Airport (brackets PDX), Portland, Oregon. One flight attendant and 7 passengers received minor injuries. The captain, first officer, 3 flight attendants, and 164 passengers were uninjured. The aeroplane sustained substantial damage. The flight and cabin crews executed the emergency procedures in response to rapid depressurization, and the flight returned to PDX for a safe landing. The airplane had a hole in the fuselage where the left MED plug (brackets rectangular airframe structure about 29 inches wide and 59 inches high) had been installed. Components on the fuselage frame that surrounded the hole, including fitting and assemblies associated with the left MED plug installation, were damaged. The passenger seats and cabin interior, located nearest the hole, were also damaged, and a setback tray table, 2 seat headrests, and cabin interior panels were missing. The airplane's left MED plug and some of the seat and interior pieces were located on the ground (brackets along the airplane's flight path) and recovered. Multiple components associated with the left MED plug installation, including 4 bolts that would secure the left MED plug from moving upward vertically, were not located. View on-scene photos on NTSB Flickr. Don't mind if I do. So, images from the NTSB investigation on the January 5 accident involving Alaska Airlines Flight 1282 on a Boeing 737 9 MAX in Portland, Oregon. Okay. So, this is the. It's just going to tell us the same thing, I think, every time. So, bugger off with that. And let's go through these. So, that. That looks like it might be the damage. I mean, it definitely is. I'm just struggling to see if there was anything else. It doesn't look like it. But God, could you imagine being sat right there in that seat? That would be horrifying. Let me out. How do I get out? Oh, exit? Or escape? Yeah, just another angle of it. Okay. So, here we can see the cockpit. Not really sure who these people are, but I'm sure we'll find out eventually. Sooner rather than later, I think. I mean, it doesn't look like there was really a whole lot of structural damage to the craft, so this shouldn't be too big of a read through then, in theory. Okay. What we found. We determined that the probable cause for this accident was the in-flight separation of the left MED plug due to Boeing's failure to provide adequate training, guidance, and oversight necessary to ensure that manufacturing personnel could consistently and correctly comply with its parts removal process, which was intended to document and ensure that the securing bolts and hardware that were removed to facilitate the rework during the manufacturing process were poorly installed. Is that all one sentence? Good grief. Okay. Contributing to the accident was the FAA's ineffective compliance enforcement surveillance and audit planning activities, which failed to adequately identify and ensure Boeing addressed the repetitive and systematic non-conformance issues associated with its parts removal process. Okay, so we're going to be going through this. Um, let's see. I'm going to go into the docket here. And now we have the project summary of the aviation investigation, 102 docket items. Mode Aviation, City Portland, NTSB number DCA24MA063. And this was last modified on the 24th of June, 2025. So, let's just go down it all individually, shall we? Most of them look pretty small, actually, so that's nice. So, okay, yeah, fine. Go. Apparently I'm downloading all of these, okay. So this is the National Transportation Safety Board investigative hearing. And I'm just going through these. Yes, it's Exhibit 1A. So, the left mid-door plug separation in Portland, Oregon, dated January 5, 2024. Order of hearing, 2 pages. Exhibit 1A, the United States of America National Transportation Safety Board, Washington, D.C., docket number SA 543, in the matter of investigation of Alaska Airlines Flight 1282, a Boeing 737 9, registration N704AL. Left mid door separation. Okay, so this is just the order of hearing. An investigative An investigative hearing is hereby ordered by the National Transportation Safety Board, with the above matter will commence at 9 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on August 6, 2024, at the NTSB Boardroom and Conference Center in Washington, D.C., dated this 3rd day of July, 2024. Okay, there's that one. Designation of the chair of Board of Inquiry. Let's. What? We're off. This is. Okay, that is. So, designation of hearing officer, designation of parties to the hearing. Notice of investigative hearing. Is this just going to be the same kind of thing? Yeah. Okay. So, this looks like it was just all of the paperwork that was done for. I assume the actual hearing in court or whatever. I don't know, I've never done this before. What's the docket table of contents? Okay, it's just the same thing without the links. So the statement of purpose. Let's go into that one. That's gonna start to drive me insane. So this is, here we go, here's something to read. Statement of the There we go. Statement of the purpose of a National Transportation Safety Board investigative hearing. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, conducts an investigative hearing as a means to assist the NTSB in obtaining information necessary to determine the facts, circumstances, and probable cause of the transportation accident or incident under investigation and to make recommendations to improve transportation safety. See 49 USC section 1131, 1135, 49 CFR section 831.4 under NTSB governing under NTSB rules governing investigative hearings. A hearing is a fact-finding proceeding during which the NTSB may examine witnesses and secure in the form of a public record all known facts pertaining to the accident or incident and surrounding circumstances and conditions from which cause or probable cause may be determined and recommendations for corrective actions may be formulated. And a few more references there. I'm not going to bother reading those out. You can see them there on the screen. Hearings allow the NTSB and its investigators to supplement relevant evidence to the NTSB obtained through other investigative channels. In advance of an investigative hearing, the NTSB designates parties to the proceedings. These are long sentences. Long and weird sentences. By statute, the Federal Aviation Administration and the U.S. Coast Guard are automatically designated a party to the NTSB investigation and their respective transportation modes. Before a hearing, the NTSB holds a pre-hearing conference during which each party has an opportunity to provide input on the subject matter of the hearing. See id. What? Oh, I don't know. The parties' input during the pre-hearing conference helps the NTSB frame the issues to which questions and evidence at the hearing will be confined. The NTSB identifies as hearing witnesses individuals. Ooh, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. My keyboard's on my lap because I am in an armchair. The investigative. Where was I? Okay. Questions are limited to the predetermined subject matter of the hearing, which the NTSB develops with parties' input. The investigative hearing's purpose is for the NTSB to receive all testimony and evidence which may be of aid in determining the cause of accident, and the chairman of the Board of Inquiry may exclude any testimony or exhibits which are not pertinent to the investigation or are merely cumulative. The NTSB does not assign fault or blame for the accident or incident. Rather, by NTSB regulations, accident/incident investigations are fact-finding proceedings with no formal issues and no adverse parties, and are not conducted for the purpose of determining the rights or liabilities of any person. As a result, the NTSB does not permit questions related to fault, outside litigation, or legal liability in general. Questions related to legal liability or fault are not relevant to the fact-finding purposes of an NTSB investigative hearing or to the NTSB's statutory mission to improve transportation safety by investigating accidents and incidents and issue safety recommendations. Okay. So this is basically just stating that this isn't necessarily a legal proceeding. It is, well, like they call it, a fact-finding investigation. So that was that. Now we have the witness list. Let's take a look at that. I might need to work out how to stop it doing that because that's getting old. All witnesses will be sworn in, then asked to state their full name, title, and the organization for which they work. So here are the witnesses: Elizabeth Lund, Chair, Quality Operations Council, Senior Vice President, Quality Boeing Commercial Airplanes, Seattle, Washington. Doug Ackerman, Vice President of Supplier Quality Boeing Commercial Airlines, Seattle, Washington. Terry George, Senior Vice President, General Manager, Boeing Programs, Spirit Aerosystems, Wichita, Kansas. Scott Grabon, Senior Director, 737-P8, Quality Spirit Aerosystems, Wichita, Kansas. Lloyd Catlin, Business Representative, International Association of Machinists, Renton, Washington. Okay, so the issues: B737-9 production in general, which includes fuselage manufacturing, inspections at Spirit and Boeing, company organization and reporting structure, which also contains reporting concerns, observations, stopping production from a line level staff concern. Okay, and then we have training of mechanic stroke turnover stroke retention, mechanic experience stroke pairing, and assignment of tasks. Process for documenting non-conformance, records, non-conformance, order, NCO, work cards, etc., I suppose. Description for description of ship-side action tracker, SAT system, and how it is intended to be used. Description of common manufacturing execution systems, or CMES, and how it is intended to be used. Process for documenting removals of previously installed parts or components, which is Boeing process specs, Boeing process instructions, and desktop instructions, which also include training process and details for BPI and users. Okay, and this includes exhibits 9A, 9E, and 11A through 11V. Question by Ponchalo Cruz, Nils Johnson, and Sabrina Woods. Panel 2. Events surrounding the opening and closing of the MED plug. Witnesses 6 and 7. Elizabeth Lund, Chair, Quality Operations Council, Senior Vice President, Quality, Boeing Commercial Airplanes, Seattle, Washington. Michael Riney, Senior Manager, Manufacturing General Support, Spirit Aerosystems, Seattle, Washington. And these are pertaining to the issues of the 737 9 production specific to the accident airplane 8789, lack of documentation of the MED plug before opened and or being opened and closed, MED plug removal and reinstallation at Boeing task management. Description of the normal tasks to remove the MED plug and how they are managed and tracked. Comparison of previous MED plug openings versus accident aeroplane. The description of flow and component traveling during assembly for the processes surrounding MED plug removal and reinstallation. Assembly line low flow pace, how it is determined, or assembly line flow pace, there we go. Boeing Spirit procedures for reporting stroke addressing discrepancies, anomalies, or concerns from the floor up. Like whoever typed this up has very interesting ideas on how commas are used. Uh, reports made regarding MED plug removal and reinstallation. Explain what we learned from shipside action tracking for this airplane. Role of the Spirit employees staffed by Aerotech Strom Aviation launch in Renton changes after accident. And the exhibits 11A through V, questioned by Ponchalo Cruz, Nils Johnson, Sabrina Woods. Panel 3, Quality Management Systems, QMS, and Safety Management Systems, SMS. And we have witnesses 8 through 17, a lot of witnesses. So this is going to be Paul Wright, Senior Director, Safety Management Systems and Chief Aerospace Safety Office, Boeing Commercial Airplanes, Seattle, Washington. Hector Silva, Vice President, Regulatory Compliance and Core Quality, Boeing Commercial Airplanes, Renton. Doug Ackerman, Vice President for Supplier Quality, Boeing Commercial Airplanes, Seattle. Greg Brown, with 2 G's like the bakery, Senior Vice President, Quality and Support, Spirit Aerosystems. William Bill Brown, Senior Advisor Quality, Spirit Aerosystems, Wichita, Kansas. Chris Ike, Aerospace Engineer, Police Policy and Standards Division, the FAA, Washington, D.C. Michael Barton, Chief Scientist and Technical Advisor for Safety and Risk Analysis, the FAA, Washington, D.C. Steve Slagle, Program Manager, Project Management Section, FAA, Washington, D.C. Brian Naup, there's a U, Manager AIR 580, System Operation and Oversight Branch, Federal Aviation Administration, Washington, D.C. Lloyd Catlin, Business Representative, International Association for Machinists, Renton, Washington. And this is the safety management systems, the process of promoting effective safety culture, voluntary implementation, reporting tracking systems, and internal audits. I'm not quite sure what those dot points mean. They're words. I understand them, but I don't know if this was a formatting issue or if I'm just not sure what voluntary in a vacuum means. Quality Management System Process. Explain what QMS is and how it relates to manufacturing, internal, external, and internal suppliers stroke process managing reacquiring spirit. Describe significant challenges in the last 5 years. Hiring, retention, other. New, lesser experienced staffing, other. Policy communications, disseminations. Describe production, rate, evolution, -5 to -10 years, and actions taken as rate changes. FAA actions regarding NTSB recommendations, SMS, safety management systems. That's what it is. Just read that out. For manufacturing in A21048. Changes after accident, and that is exhibits 11A through V, questioned by same people. Okay. And then we have witnesses 11 or 18 through 22. Hector Silva, Vice President, Regulatory Compliance and Core Quality, Boeing, Seattle. Bill Brown, Senior Advisor, Spirit Aerosystem, Wichita. Brian Naup, Manager, AIR 580, System Operation and Oversight Branch, Federal Aviation Administration, Lakewood, California. Uh, Brian Kilgrow, Manager, AIR 582B, Airplane Oversight Section, designated PC 700 Principal Inspector, the FAA in Charleston, South Carolina, and once again Lloyd Catlin, Business Representative, Internal Association of Machinists in Renton. And they will be uh, they were called for to discuss these issues or speak on them, I guess. Describe work plan and process for oversight production. How is the audit schedule determined? Other methods and tools for oversight. Changes in oversight methods. Designed versus or designated versus direct or other. Results of FAA audit of Boeing. Describe how stroke why stroke procedure for auditing. Issues with process and documentation and non-conformance effectiveness of FAA guidance and actions on manufacturing. SMS currently is not a requirement, but how does this affect tasking for FAA oversight now and in the future when it is required? Quality management systems training and enhancement oversight programs, FAA oversight of manufacturers, records keeping, history of audits, undocumented removal, BPI for parts or assembly, Boeing, the history of BPI for parts or assembly removal, FAA actions regarding NTSB recommendations, uh, safety management systems for manufacturing A-21 048. And again, exhibits 11A through V, and questioned by the same three folks. Okay. There is a door open somewhere in here, and it's freezing. So I am going to go deal with that. Be right back. Forgot to unmute. Anyway, we're back. I've got a dressing gown to docks. Oh, there should be one over there, but I don't know where it is. Fascinating. Hmm. Custom browser docs. Nope, close. Interesting. I used to have comments up here, but I don't know where they went. Not comments, live chat. Anyway, as I was saying, there's a witness's professional biographies. That just looks like it's everyone's CVs, so we're not going to really deal with that. What I got from the witness list, and I was really struggling to just get through that because it was cold in here. We leave the bedroom doors open, and someone left the bedroom windows open, and someone left the door open, and all the cold got in the house. But basically, from the sounds of just off the top of why these people have been called as witnesses, is that Boeing's gonna Boeing. They've got not a great safety record. They've got not a great, really, any kind of record aside from the fact that they make big planes that are used everywhere. The problem with Boeing is that it was allowed to become too big to fail because they did a lot of our space stuff for a while. They've got a lot of big military contracts. So you're not allowed to fail, and that kind of turns into eventually that it doesn't matter what they do because they're so integral to all of these other facets of aviation, both, you know, economically within the military, within space and science and all that, well, we can't have them having any liability because that looks bad on the rest of us. So just, let them get away with garbage. Because as was said earlier, this isn't a criminal hearing. It's a fact-finding hearing, basically. So, like, the NTSB is unfortunately in this really awkward position where they can tell you exactly what a problem is quite a lot of the time, but they're not able to really do anything about it. They can make recommendations. And then the FAA can decide whether or not they go along with those recommendations. And some of those recommendations are specifically for the airlines, but like nobody is enforcing the implementation of those. So unfortunately, as vital of a operation the NTSB is, they're, kind of in that boffin corner where they're not allowed to talk. Because everything that they do say is, gonna make someone else look bad. So what do we have here? So this is the investigative hearing exhibit list. So we have the order of hearing, the designation of the chairman, board of inquiry, the designation of the hearing officer, designation of parties to the hearing, notice of, I think this is, okay, I see what they're doing. Is that? No, not quite the same. So then we have the operational factors, survivor factors, systems, factual reports. We've got some FDR data, so that's going to be fun to go through. Manufacturing records. Lots of manufacturing records. Boeing process instructions, so we've got some excerpts from that. We have CVR and a factual report and an appendix. Neat. Okay. So that is just more or less this. Okay, yeah. Here we go. So the Board of Inquiry and Technical Panel Professional Biographies. I feel like I know what this is going to be. Just the same thing as last time, yeah. Just some CVs of some of the people involved. And then we have Operational Factors Group Chairman Factual Report. This is 36 pages, so I think this is where we finally get into some goodies. Okay, so the Operational Factors, 24th of June, 2024. We've got a table of contents. So we've got the accident, the summary, details of investigation, crew, the airplane, flight deck, relevant systems. Okay. So A. Shit. There was a soda stream bottle and it got knocked over by my microphone. Accident A. Location, Portland, Oregon. Date, 5th of January, 2024. Time, 5:14 Pacific Standard Time. Okay, and whatever 1:14 Universal Coordinated Time is, the airplane, the N704AL Boeing 737-9. The Operational Factors Group. Group Chair, Star Bloom. Group Member, Marvin France, Gary Pitchford, Ryan Iwazaki, Dennis Vorpal, and J.P. Wilson of mostly Seattle. Summary. On January 5th, 2024, about 5:14 Pacific Standard Time, Alaska Airlines Flight 1282, a Boeing 737-9, returned to Portland International Airport, Portland, Oregon, after the left mid-exit door plug departed the airplane, leading to a rapid decompression. The airplane landed on runway 28L at PDX without further incident, and all occupants, two flight crew members, 4 cabin crew members, and 171 passengers departed at the gate. 7 passengers and 1 flight attendant received minor injuries. The flight was operated under Title 14 Code of Federal Regulations, Part 121, as a scheduled domestic passenger flight from PDX to Ontario International Airport, ONT, Ontario, California. I got a snack. I'm hungry. So the details of the investigation. Operational Factors Group activities. January 5th. The Operational Factors investigator was notified of the accident and made travel arrangements. January 6th. The Operational Factors investigator arrived in Portland, Oregon. An Operational Factors group was formed at the organizational meeting. The following documents were requested from Alaska Airlines: flight crew schedules, flight crew records, minimum equipment lists, flight operations manual, flight handbook, quick reference handbook, quick reference checklist, normal checklist, and aircraft communication addressing and reporting system, ACARS, data. January 7th. The Operational Factors Group recorded the interviews with the pilots of the Boeing 737-9 for transcription purposes and participated in the progress meeting. Detailed crew statements from Alaska Airlines Flight 1284 on January 3rd and Alaska Air Flight 536 on January 4th were requested from the respective pilots. These 2 flights were made by the accident aeroplane. Okay. flight certification packages from the FAA, January 8th. Pilot certification packages from the FAA were requested for the accident pilots. The operational factors group composed supplemental follow-up questions for the captain after his interview. The questions concerned flight deck and flight attendants' communications after the rapid decompression and autopilot engagement throughout the flight to reconcile reported autopilot use with flight data recorder data from the accident flight. Responses from the captain were received and operational factors group's field notes were begun. Okay. January 9th, 2024. The group compiled a history of flight/sequence of events narrative based on crew interviews and FDR data. The operational factors group field notes were completed. Try that again. The operation. The operational. There it goes again. The operational factors group field notes were completed, and the group members were released. I get this thing in my throat sometimes. It feels like I'm having an allergic reaction to something, but I'm not. I think the other thing was for Twitch or something. Maybe that's why I'm confused. Okay. April 10th. So we've skipped forward a bit. The operational factors group met at Alaska Airlines Long Acres Simulator Training Facility in Seattle, Washington. The group documented the oxygen mask mock-up trainer and the communications in oxygen mask differences in the Boeing 737 new generation and the 737-9 simulators. A similar evaluation was conducted, and documentation of various indications were accomplished. Scenarios included normal as well as non-normal procedures. See Operational Factors, Attachment 5, Simulator Evaluation for further information. April 11th. The Operational Factors Group interviewed the Alaska Airlines Managing Director of Flight Training and the Alaska Airlines instructors who conducted the accident pilot's most recent simulator checks. The interview was recorded for transcription purposes. 2. History of flight. The accident flight was the first leg of the crew's one-day pairing, which consisted of a round trip from Portland to Ontario to Portland. The crew was off-duty the day prior to the event. The flight departed PDX at about 26 minutes late due to the airplane requiring de-icing. According to the dispatch briefing packet, the total time for the flight from PDX to Ontario was was projected to be 1 hour and 44 minutes. Yeah, that all tracks. I don't fly anymore. There's no reason to, but I fucking hated flying out of this area, or out of this area in winter when when I did fly. But yeah, I mean, I've lived down there near Ontario. I've lived not too far from it as well, and that just about tracks. They're a pretty quick flight. The crew stated that they arrived at the airplane around 3:40 with a proposed departure time of 4:40 for their first flight of the day. During their pre-flight, they noticed 3 write-ups in the maintenance logbook. They discussed the airplane's MEL items that were deferred for the flight, which included a forward galley latch and the right main aft fuel boost pump. Okay. According to the crew interviews, the first officer stated the external pre-flight walk-around was normal, except she noticed there was ice on the wing. The crew asked for an ice check to be performed, and the airplane was de-iced prior to taxiing. God, that's a stupid-looking word. I hate those words that end in I like that. The captain conducted the departure briefing, which included the threats of de-icing, previous cabin pressure controller auto-fail light-up write-ups, Christ, and the inoperative right main aft fuel boost pump. Flight taxied out to runway 28 left and departed about 5:06 p.m. Visual meteorological conditions were present at the time, and the captain conducted the takeoff. Okay. Both crew members reported the pushback, taxi, and takeoff were uneventful. The captain and first officer stated in the interviews that after departure, they checked in with Seattle Air Route Traffic Control Center and were issued a climb clearance to flight level 230 and to proceed to CHISM. Yo, what's CHISM? Okay, that's just a waypoint. Climbing through 10,000 feet. Okay. I watch a lot of videos. I've never really seen it written out, so I'm gonna get tripped up by a lot of these things. Climbing through 10,000 feet above sea level, the first officer verified the pressurization was normal. The captain stated, climbed to roughly 1,600 feet, loud bang, ears popping. My head got pushed up into the HUD, and my headset got pushed off. Not off my head, but almost off my head. The first officer noticed her ears popped and reported that simultaneously her headset blew off, the flight deck door blew open, and the cabin altitude warning horn sounded. She pushed the altitude warning cutout switch to cease the continuous audible alert. She further reported that in her peripheral view, I saw the door open. I saw the cabin tubes hanging from the ceiling, and at that point my focus was forward, and I yelled, get down, and I didn't hear much. It was very loud. The FO stated that she saw the hand of a flight attendant shut the flight deck door, which it remained closed for the remainder of the flight. Now that's weird. I hadn't actually heard this before, that the door came open. Because I'm old enough to remember when those doors weren't locked. So that was a hell of a thing to open what should have been a locked door. Okay. So the captain and the first officer donned their oxygen masks, and the captain asked the first officer to declare an emergency and get a lower altitude. The first officer did not know where her headset was, so she pushed the speaker switch and turned the volume up to maximum. The captain disconnected the autopilot and auto throttles and began a descent to 10,000 feet. ATC instructed them to fly heading 340 degrees to return to PDX. The first officer reached to the top of the glare shield panel to retrieve the quick reference checklist from its holder, but found it was not there. She did not recall seeing loose items in the flight deck by by her duration or by her during the rapid fuck. She did not recall seeing loose items in the flight deck by her during the rapid depressurization. I know why these are worded slightly oddly because they have to go off of the wording of the person who's speaking it. And speaking language is just oftentimes does not really translate well to written, especially English, which is so heavily reliant on syntax. The captain handed her the quick reference handbook from the center pedestal's left side to begin the cabin altitude warning or rapid depressurization checklist. The first officer stated the checklist required the crew to verify cabin pressure, which she noted displayed 14,500 feet. There we go. The captain described the event as an explosive experience, and communications were rough. The first officer stated it was chaos. It was very loud and difficult to hear each other and air traffic control. So the first officer continued reading the checklist aloud as she heard the interphone chime, signaling the flight attendants calling the flight deck. The captain attempted to communicate with the flight attendants while wearing the oxygen mask. He heard the flight attendants talking about a hole over the cabin interphone. He attempted to communicate with the flight attendants a couple of times, but he heard no response. The captain was unsure if the flight attendants could hear him. As the first officer completed the checklist, the flight was heading 340, and they were in visual meteorological conditions and could see the airport. He continued to hear the flight attendant talking about a hole in a cabin and decided to get the airplane on the ground as soon as possible. Yeah, no shit. I can't imagine what they might have expected that to be. Like, the worst possible events were probably going through their minds right there. Jesus Christ. According to the pilot interviews, by the time the first officer completed the cabin altitude warning or rapid depressurization checklist, the airplane was at 10,000 feet, which led them to decide not to conduct the emergency descent checklist. The captain then suggested they take off the oxygen masks and put their headsets back on to try to establish better communications. While descending below 10,000 feet with their headsets on, the first officer reported hearing an extremely loud white noise, and the communication between themselves and ATC was not possible. The captain stated it was a squeal coming from the oxygen mic, which we hadn't closed the doors to, which we hadn't closed the doors to the oxygen masks, and so that was all producing a squeal. That didn't cross my mind at the time, so we went back to the oxygen masks. The first officer stated she had reached for the mask/mic switch that would be located on the Boeing 737NG audio control panel to establish communications with her headset. The switch was not part of the 737-9's audio control panel, nor the same procedure to reestablish communications in the 737-9. Both crew members stated they did not close the oxygen stowage back door. Due to the noise in their headsets, they donned the oxygen masks again. The first officer loaded the ILS 28 left approach in the flight management computer, and they prepared for approach and landing. The pilots reported that the landing was uneventful. Aircraft rescue and firefighting personnel were awaiting by the runway. They taxied the airplane to the gate. According to the statement by the D flight attendant after landing, she and the first officer searched the cabin for the quick reference checklist. The first officer later confirmed she found it in the flight deck behind her seat. What? Behind the seat, where, yeah, that's super useful. So, that sounds like a hell of a few minutes. Jesus. Okay, so, Section 3, Crew Information. The Captain. The captain was 48 years old and had been employed at Alaska Airlines since August 2007. He reported he had about 12,700 hours of total flight experience, and of those hours, about 6,500 were in the Boeing 737. According to Alaska Airlines, 304 hours were in the 737 9 at the time of the accident. Prior to his employment with Alaska Airlines, he was a flight instructor at Embry-Riddle and All Nippon Airways. He was hired as a pilot for SkyWest Airlines in 2000 and then Alaska Airlines in 2007. The captain stated in the interview he had 3 days off prior to the accident flight. During the 72 hours preceding the accident flight, he stated that he had a good night's sleep and went for a long 3-hour bike ride. The captain was the pilot flying during the event. Okay, and then the captain's certificates and ratings held at the time of the accident. Airline transport pilot. So airplane, single engine land, type ratings Boeing 737 EMB 120. Limitations English proficient, Boeing 737 circle approach VMC only. Flight instructor, airplane, single engine, multi engine instrument airplane, medical certificate, FAA first class medical certificate issued September 8, 2023. Okay. Captain's pilot certification records. The FAA records of the captain indicated the following. Private pilot, airplane single engine land certificate was issued November 3rd, 1993. Private pilot, airplane single engine land instrument airplane certificate was issued May 25, 1994. Notice of disapproval. Commercial pilot airplane single engine land instrument airplane issued March 15, 1995. Unsatisfactory items. Area 4, short field landings, and Area 5, lazy 8s. Commercial pilot airplane single engine land instrument certificate was issued March 21, 1995. Flight instructor airplane single engine certificate was issued July 6, 1995. Flight instructor airplane single engine instrument airplane certificate was issued May 8, 1996. Commercial pilot airplane single engine and multi engine land instrument airplane certification was issued June 11, 1998. Flight instructor airplane single engine and multi engine land instrument airplane certificate was issued July 28, 1998. Renewed 98, 2000, 2002, 2004, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. Okay. Airline transport pilot, airline multi engine land, EMB 120. Commercial privileges airplane single engine land certificate was issued July 9th, 2003. Airline transport pilot, airplane multi engine land, EMB 120, B737. Commercial privileges, airplane single engine land limitations, B737, circling approach, VMC only, B737. Privileges only certificate was issued October 20, 2007. Airline transport pilot, airplane multi engine land, EMB 120, B737, commercial privileges, airplane single engine land limitations. So basically the same thing. Was issued February 3rd, 2015. The captain's training. According to Alaska Airlines, the following training events were recorded for the captain. Basic Indoctrination of Flight Personnel, which was August 30th, 2007. First Officer Initial, November 6th, 2007. Captain Upgrade, November 14, 2018. Initial 737-9 MAX familiarization, computer-based training. Can never keep a straight face. December 17th, 2020. Initial 737-9 MAX familiarization simulator. Most recent line, that was January 6, 2021. Most recent line check, 737NG, February 1, 2023. Continuing qualification, 737 evaluation period, April 7, 2023. And the QC quarterly training, odd year quarter 3, July 24th, 2023. Okay. And the last rapid depressurization simulator scenario, October 2nd, 2007. Next section, the first officer. The first officer was 36 years old and had been employed by Alaska Airlines since August 2017. She was previously employed by Virgin America, which was subsequently purchased by Alaska Airlines. She reported she had about 8,300 hours of total flight experience, which included about 1,500 hours in the 737. According to Alaska Airlines, 311 hours were in the 737-9 at the time of the accident. And her certificates: airline transport pilot, airplane multi-engine land, commercial privileges, single engine land, single engine sea, type ratings for a whole bunch. Flight instructor, airplane, single engine, multi engine, instrument airplane, ground instructor, advanced, medical certificate, FAA, first class medical certificate, issued June 13, 2023. Okay, now here's her flight certification record. Oh god, hers is huge. Okay, so I'm just gonna zip through these because there's a lot. So the private pilot, 2004. Commercial pilot, 2008. Flight instructor, 2010. Flight instructor, 2011. So basically, a lot. According to Alaska Airlines, the following training events were recorded for the first officer. So, familiarization. Can't remember what that stands for. September 1st, 2021, initial B737-9 MAX simulator, 7th of September, 737 first officer transition, September 22nd of that same year, QC B373 evaluation period, February 28, 2023. Most recent line check on the 737NG was June 5th, 2023. QC quarterly training, odd year quarter 3, July 10, 2023. And last rapid decompression simulator scenario, August 12, 2021. Okay. So basically, they know shit. Section 3.3, the crew. A review of the crew members' training records, that apostrophe's in the wrong place, revealed that they trained a rapid decompression upon employment during initial ground school in a simulator. When the 737 was delivered to Alaska, they received an initial familiarization, CBT. What the fuck does that mean? I've already forgotten. Computer-based training. Computer-based training. Not the other thing. initial familiarization, computer-based training, module on oxygen masks and communication differences. Every other year in a CQ simulator event, the crew received hands-on emergency equipment training on a mock-up trainer that contained the oxygen masks and stowage boxes for the 737 MAX and 737NG. This trainer does not include headset jacks or audio control panels. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Alaska Airlines exempted donning oxygen masks during training from June 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020. According to the training records, the captain would have had training exposure to the 737-9's oxygen masks and communication differences 4 times, and the first officer 3 times before the accident. Okay, there's the airplane. Looks like a typical Alaska airplane. Airways? I don't know. Forgotten. That's gonna happen a lot. I have a mind like a piece of soggy Swiss cheese. The aircraft was a Boeing 737-9, serial number 67501, manufactured in 2023. A standard airworthiness certificate in the transport category was issued on October 25th, 2023. It was powered by 2 CFM International LEAP 1B28 engines capable of producing 29,317 pounds of thrust each. The aircraft had 2 crew seats, 2 flight deck jump seats, 4 flight attendant seats, 1 flight attendant jump seat, and 178 passenger seats. The airplane was issued a standard airworthiness certificate on October 25th, 2023. The airplane had the following MEL deferred maintenance items. Foreign documents missing, forward galley comp latch or quarter turn, and the main aft fuel boost pump inoperative. Review of the MELs show that's wrong apostrophe there as well. Review of the MELs showed none of the items pertained to the accident. Now here we've got a diagram of the 737-9 MAX, which, okay, so about 36 meters wide. The tail, 14. It's, what is that? 5 meters at the wheels. Okay. 42 meters long. And 12 meters high. Neat. Okay. Airplane weight and balance. The following information, unless otherwise noted, was provided from Alaska Airlines weight and balance paperwork. All weights are listed in pounds. Okay, so the airplane empty weight is 107,403 pounds. With its payload 35,529. Zero fuel weight 142,932 pounds. Fuel 20,000 pounds or 20,400 pounds. Ramp weight 163,000 pounds, 732. Taxi fuel 400. Takeoff weight 163,332. Maximum takeoff weight 191,900. Projected en route fuel burn 8,858. Okay. Projected landing weight 144,832. Maximum weight landing weight 163,700 pounds. And the MAC. It just takes me down to the thing. 21.5. Let's see. Mean aerodynamic chord. Hadn't heard that one before. According to the company's website, McGee Airways and Star Air Service began in 1932. This is the operator. In 1944, after several company mergers, the company became Alaska Airlines. In 2016, Virgin America was acquired by Alaska Airlines, and in 2018, the FAA granted a single operating certificate to operate as a single airline under the Alaska brand. The fleet consisted of 231 Boeing 737s, of which 65 were 737 9s. Other 737 models at Alaska include the 900ER 900, the 8 MAX 800, 800F, 700, and 700F. Airport information. Portland International Airport was a joint civil-military airport. What do you mean was? Located within the city limits of Portland, Oregon. The airport elevation was 31 feet, with 3 paved airline landing surfaces designated as runways 28 left, 10 right, or 28 right, 10 left, and 21 3. The paved surface for runway 28 left, 10 right was 11,000 feet long and 150 feet wide. 28 right stroke 12 left was 9,825 feet long and 150 wide, and 21 stroke 3 was 6,000 feet and 150 feet wide. The airport was serviced by an air traffic control tower, which was in operation at the time of the accident. Operations in 2023 totaled 14,425. Of that, 869 were considered general aviation and 120 were military. Why are they talking like it's not there anymore? Did I miss something? Okay, so not for navigation, but here is a diagram of PDX. Here we go. That hasn't made it any easier to see, but I can kind of tell you what's going on here. So, which one is this? So that is the 10 right, 28 left, 28 right, 10 left, and that is 3 and 21. And it's in a really awkward space because we've got. It's basically part of the Columbia River Slough. So it's got freezing water over here. It's constantly raining. It's in a good place though, and it's very easy to get to, and it's out of the way, uh, for the most part. But yeah, like having to de-ice here, even though we're not a really typically cold place, that river and just the general rain of the weather here in general is just very wet and very cold. Okay, so meteorological information. The PDX airport had an automated surface observation system which was augmented by contract weather observers. At the time of departure and the time of the accident, the following conditions were reported. So yeah, there's all that. Yeah, but in plain language, that is PDX weather observation at 5:53 Pacific, wind from 180 at 10 knots, gusting 19 knots, visibility 10 miles, ceiling broken at 5,500 feet. AGL, I know this. What is it? Above ground level. Overcast at 1,500 feet, temperature 10 degrees Celsius, dew point temperature 3. Altimeter setting 30.2, altimeter setting 30.20 inches of mercury. Remarks automated observation system with a precipitation disseminator. Sea level pressure of 1022.6 something Pascal. What's the H? Hectopascal. Temperature 10 degrees, dew point 3.3. So that's about 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So, I mean, I'm still not really that surprised though that it could be that warm and need de-icing, just because as soon as you get into those clouds, it's going to be freezing. So, for further weather information, refer to the NTSB Meteorological Specialist Report located in the docket for this accident investigation. Section 9, Flight Deck Layout of the 737-8, 737-9, the instrument panels. A normal checklist and QRC were combined on the front and back of a laminated card. These checklists were normally stowed in a holder at the center on top of the glare shield panel. There we go. So, right here. The Quick Reference Handbook was stowed on the left side of the control stand. Okay, so there. And there's the oxygen masks. Okay. The pilot's oxygen masks and oxygen mask stowage boxes were located on the oxygen mask panel on the left and right sides of the flight deck. So 9.2, the flight deck. So this is an actual photo of the aeroplane. Okay. So control stand and audio control panels of accident aeroplane indicated by blue circles. So there we go. Captain side panel of accident aeroplane with oxygen mask and stowage box indicated by blue circles. So right there. Okay. So section 10, relevant systems. The flight crew oxygen system. The following excerpts are from an Alaska Airlines 737 System Handbook in section 1.040, 040, page 16. Emergency equipment provided the following about the crew oxygen system. Flight crew oxygen system. B/E aerospace full face sweep on mask. I don't know what that BE means, but cool. The flight crew oxygen system is equipped with a B/E, which is BE aerospace, full face sweep on oxygen mask at each crew station. The masks are contained in a large stowage box located on the captain and first officer side consoles and at both observer positions. The mask may be operationally checked while stowed or removed from the stowage box. The mask incorporates a diluter demand regulator with a manual control allowing the selection of altitude-controlled diluted automatic oxygen on demand or 100% oxygen and emergency purge for respiratory and visual protection. What a mouthful. The mask-mounted regulator utilizes a single knob mode control. In emergencies, using one hand, the mask can be donned and functioning in less than 5 seconds. The face shield includes integral purge valve assemblies that allow oxygen to enter the face shield for purging of smoke and fumes. The purge valves open automatically when the emergency position is selected. An integral dynamic microphone is installed in the mask for a means of communication via the aircraft audio communication system. An inflatable harness is connected to the regulator and face shield. Yeah, I've seen these. It's like a face hugger. They're really cool. So yeah, that's just a diagram of how it go. 3 modes. Okay. So or what are we on here? Oh, yeah, so we're on the mask. Okay, so number 1, the harness inflation red switches located on each side of the mode. Select your knob, inflate the harness when depressed. The flow indicator will display a colored yellow cross momentarily as the harness inflates. Releasing the harness inflation switch allows the harness to deflate. The regulator control is located on the nose of the mask and is rotated to select the appropriate setting. A mode indicator arrow provides reference to determine what mode has been selected. See Figure 8. Okay. So, well, I guess you just kind of have to do that by feel. Okay. So the regulator control is located on the nose. A mode indicator Regulator, the regulator sections are as follows. Selections. Oh my god, I can't speak tonight. With the regulator set to normal position, the regulator provides an automatic oxygen dilution schedule. At lower cabin altitudes, ambient air is allowed to enter the regulator and mix with the added oxygen during inhalation. As the cabin altitude increases, the percentage of ambient air entering the regulator is reduced until a preset point 100% oxygen is inhaled by the user. The automatic dilution feature ensures conservation in the amount of oxygen consumed while still maintaining a safe physiological level. In the event of an emergency depressurization, the regulator will automatically provide 100% oxygen when the cabin altitude exceeds the preset point. 100%. This setting provides 100% oxygen to the user upon inhalation, regardless of the cabin altitude. The regulator should always be stowed in the 100% mode. After the emergency and to conserve oxygen when altitudes do not require 100%, the regulator may be sent to the normal position. Emergency. The emergency control setting, like the 100% setting, provides 100% oxygen regardless of cabin altitude. In addition, oxygen is supplied at a slight positive pressure in the mask face cone and may result in a maximum flow rate of 90 liters per minute. This emergency safety pressure prevents toxic gas contaminants from entering the mask by venting through the purge valves mounted on the nose cone. The positive pressure purges smoke and toxic fumes from the face shield and removes condensation or fogging to maintain visual protection. That's neat. Caution: use of emergency mode depletes oxygen supply at a higher rate than 100% or normal mode. Use emergency mode only as conditions require. Note: communications in emergency mode may be difficult. Switch to 100% or norm if conditions allow. Warning: to avoid the risk of combustion in an oxygen enriched environment, the mask should be kept free of oil, grease, and other forms of petroleum products. Oxygen mask stowage box. There it is. With some orange juice or something. Okay. So. Ooh. This looks like. Okay, yeah. So, number 1, the retest stroke test switch spring loaded to reset position when positioned to test and released with oxygen right stowage door closed and the holy shit Oxygen on flag is not displayed. Will activate the oxygen flow and mask microphone momentarily to operationally test the regulator. Oxygen on flag displayed shuts off oxygen flow to the mask. Note, oxygen flow may be reestablished by simply lifting the right stowage box door to the open position. And 2, the flow indicator displays a yellow cross when the oxygen is flowing to the mask through the supply hose as a result of the test or retest test switch is activated with the mask stowed or when the mask is donned and the user is inhaling. Number 3, oxygen on flag, white tab, when visible, indicates the oxygen shutoff valve is open, allowing oxygen to flow through the mask. When the oxygen on flag is retracted out of view, the oxygen shutoff valve is closed. Note, ensuring the stowage box oxygen shutoff valve is closed, indicated by the oxygen on flag not being visible, by activating the reset test switch terminates oxygen flow to the mask and ensures the flight crew oxygen quantity will not continue to bleed overboard through a suspected leak in the mask, regulator, harness, or supply hose. Okay, the oxygen shutoff valve is open when the right stowage box door is open or closed and the oxygen on flag is visible, or closed with the oxygen on flag not visible, but the test retest switch is positioned to test. With the regulator selected to 100% or normal, the oxygen shutoff valve will open momentarily when the rest test switch is positioned to test. In emergency, the oxygen shutoff valve will remain open as long as the test retest switch is positioned to test. And 4, the regulator control. Okay, so basically, the mask is smarter than I am because I understand what it's saying. I can't explain it. Basically, it does a lot of complicated things to keep your ass alive. Okay, so 7-3. Is this where I was? Yeah, no. So yeah, the 737 MAX flight crew oxygen system differences. The following extract are from the Alaska Airlines 737 System Handbook in section 1.050, page 105. Airplane general differences provided the following about the crew oxygen system. The mask microphone is enabled when the mask is removed from the stowage box. Transmission selection is made on ACP, the audio control panel. There is no mask boom switch on the audio control panel. With the flight crew oxygen mask removed from the stowage box, right stowage box door open, the mask microphone is automatically selected and the boom microphone is deselected. When the right stowage box door is closed, the test reset switch actuated and the oxygen on flag is no longer displayed, the mask microphone will be deselected and the boom microphone will be selected. The test reset switch is spring-loaded when positioned to test reset and released with the mask right stowage door closed and the oxygen. Okay, I'm sick of oxygen masks. Okay, basically it's intelligent. It does things I don't understand. So the transmitter selected mic selector switches when illuminate indicate respective switches active. Okay, so selects respective communication system for subsequent transmission. Only one switch may be selected at a time. Pushing a second switch deselects the first switch. Reception possible over selected system regardless of whether... What? Okay. So this is just kind of going through the basic functions that the pilots needed in the moment, and is also, I think, setting us up to understand another problem that Boeing tend to have. Because, like, you don't hear about this kind of thing with, like, Airbus, which is that Boeing has 800 different unique granular models for the 737, and they're not terribly compatible to the end user, which would be the pilots in this case. So like it's like when your phone does an update in the middle of the night and that one bit that you really like that you need a lot has suddenly moved and it's maybe moved like 2 spaces down in a menu something. The point is it's moved and your muscle memory is fucked for however long it takes you to redevelop those habits. And if especially if it's something you don't need often, like say, switching between microphones in your headset and for the emergency mask, that those little kind of differences can really go a long way into screwing up everything that comes next because you've taken so much time to even notice that there's a problem to begin with. So I think that's what this bit is setting us up for. I'm frankly sick of reading it. I've linked this down in the description. You can read this section for yourself if you'd like. So yeah, like this here is a lot of dials and switches and buttons and things. And yeah, just this button, either this switch, even if it's moved somewhere else, is a problem. And a lot of times, like, these aren't the kind of things that are super relevant to your certification. But when you're in a danger situation, your brain is going to go back to what's familiar, which is the other aeroplane you've been flying for however many years. I mean, how often does this come up on Mayday? Like, these kind of stupid little things. So, we've got the computer-based training. Alaska Airlines Initial Familiarization Computer-Based Training Module contains the following slide concerning... Oh, I know, with this computer-based training... Oh, this stuff sucks. My partner has to do this for work, not for aviation. He's in the medical field. And, like, yeah, they're so easy to... Yeah, you've done the training, but you've retained the information for just long enough to get to the quiz at the end of it. Like, I don't think these are necessarily the best training tools you can use, especially if we're just dealing with here's an updated thing that is not, never going to come up. Anyway, so if the flight crew oxygen mask is removed from the stowage box or the right stowage door is open, the mask... Yeah, fuck, still more of these things. Okay. So here we got the flight deck door. This is what I'm really confused about because I hadn't heard this before, that the door came open. So let's see what this is all about. We're on page 32 out of 36, and then I think this is going to get a part 2. So the flight deck door. According to the crew interviews, the pilots were not aware that the 737-9 flight deck door would open aft during a cabin rapid depressurization. Yeah, like that's terrifying. The aspect of the door operation during cabin they've used depressurization and decompression there. Fuck, okay. I have I'm dyslexic. My brain's so tangled up I can't even think of the right words to say. Okay, this aspect of the door operation during cabin decompression was not documented in either Boeing or this is what I'm talking about. Little stupid things like this that will never come up just aren't documented. And then that throws you off for the rest of the event because you're always struggling to make up that time that you lost being confused by the door behind you bursting open, which is not supposed to be able to happen. In response, Boeing issued a multi-operator message (MOM) on January 13th, 2024 to inform owners and operators of Boeing 737 MAX airplanes of an amendment to the Flight Crew Operations Manual, Volume 2, Systems Description Section, Chapter 1, Airplane General Emergency Equipment, Doors, Windows, Controls, and Indicators, to provide a description of the flight deck door system functionality during a decompression event in the passenger cabin. Boeing reviewed their documentation after the accident and provided investigators with a statement that the 737 MAX Flight Crew Operations Manual was based on the MAX was based on the 737 NG FCOM. The difference in flight deck door design was not captured in the 737 MAX FCOM. Crew procedures were unaffected and remain common between the 737 MAX and the 737 NG. Yeah, but when you're trying to climb to cruise and all of a sudden the fucking door behind you slams open, like, yeah, they need to know that. Boeing are so bad at this. They do this kind of shit all the time, and it is always a problem. Okay, so Alaska Airline changes post accident. In response to the accident, Alaska Airlines has done the following: published a bulletin to flight crews to improve language regarding the oxygen mask system in operation in the Alaska Airlines 737 Systems Handbook, Volume 1, Section 1.050, Airplane General, in Volume 2, NG Differences, Sections 1.010, Airplane General. Published a bulletin requesting crews to inspect and clean oxygen masks on the first flight of the day. Added microphone test description in the Systems Handbook, Volume 1, MAX, Section 1.050, Airplane General. Updated the flight deck door description and added cabin decompression information in the Systems Handbook. I don't know why that's not sticking in my head either. In the Systems Handbook, Volume 1 and Volume 2, in those places. Added microphone pre-flight check procedure in the 737 Flight Handbook, Section 3.040, Normals. Updated the flight operations duty officer and dispatch debrief checklist for post-incident/accident to remind crews to pull CVR circuit breaker. Updated language in Flight Operations Manual, section that emergency/abnormal, requiring crews to pull CVR/FDR circuit breaker after each accident. Okay. And the reason they do that is because these recorders go on a loop, and you don't want it just running constantly after that and then recording over everything with just noise or even nothing. Okay. They added the CVR FDR circuit breaker information to the circuit breaker list in the QRH. Forgot what the QRH is. So this is why I can't do anything professional. I don't retain information. Created new computer-based training. That's what it is. I remembered it. created new computer-based training slides relating to oxygen masks communications that are taught during initial ground school, captain upgrade training, and 2024 CQ Quarter 2 training cycle for all pilots. Created a new training video consisting of information on rapid decompression, emergency descent, oxygen masks, communications, and flight deck door operations, which will be trained in quarters 3 of computer-based trainings for all pilots. Included scenarios which will require the crew to don the oxygen mask, communicate, and subsequently doff the oxygen mask, and continue with the event, including all communications required, and the 2025 CQ Evaluation Loft Simular Training, and added verbiage in the instructor guide on restoring boom mic communications in the 737 MAX. And then we have relevant procedures. Cabin altitude warning or rapid depressurization checklist on the Alaska Airlines 737-9 QRH dated December 29, 2022. Section Communications, pages E5.1, provided the following guidance for a cabin altitude warning or rapid depressurization checklist. Okay, and then here's the actual page. So, cabin altitude warning or rapid depressurization, masks and regulators on, 100%, crew communications establish. Okay. So that's neat. Here's a bit more of it. So, the approach checklist, at pattern altitude, landing checklist. Okay. I think this is the last page. And then 15 or section 15, NASA ASRS reports. A review of NASA ASRS data reports 5 years prior to the date of the accident revealed that 3 reports mentioned pressurization problems in the 737-8 MAX. One of the reports, ACN, that mentioned the cabin pressure panel went blank on climb out. However, the pressurization appeared to be operating normally. And then here is a list of attachments, so transcript statements, training records. Okay, so yeah, it's just all the other stuff that we saw. Okay. Been going for about 2 hours here. It's now 2:30 in the morning. So, I will probably be back tomorrow evening to come up on what are we just did this. We'll start up on number 12 tomorrow night. And we'll just very slowly indeed. Uh there's some transcripts, those are going to be fun. But we'll go through all of this just kind of bit by bit. So I'm on this one. I'm just going to highlight that. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Calls to action, all that, and I will see you